Hi, it's Rick Jones back with another edition of From the Bridge. Today, as we're in the holiday season, we're going to once again talk about how sports and entertainment can help charities and help people in a variety of ways. My guest is Randy Karsten, Vice President of Business Alliances for the V Foundation for Cancer Research. He'll be here to tell us the latest news and initiatives for the V Foundation. We'll pontificate from the soapbox and spotlight another great place to eat on the road with Rick. So let's launch the boat from the bridge. I've told you before that one of our executives, Paul Ogletree, coined the new phrase for our agency, FishBait Marketing, and we've now trademarked the term. When we get back together, let's give back together. The COVID-19 is still with us, and we still don't know when we'll be able to return to some degree of normalcy and be able to get back together in large numbers. But I do know two things. Number one, we will get back together in big, big ways. And number two, people are hurting from this pandemic and will continue to hurt in so many ways for an unknown period of time. And we're going to need to use events to help those in need. And that's the meaning of when we get back together, let's give back together. Our client, the Country Music Association, is now providing food boxes for members of the music industry in Nashville and other cities. These people have not been able to work since the virus began. A lot of other people have lost jobs or are in need of food just to feed their families. And events are the perfect places to collect non-perishable foods when we can all get back together. Places like the CMA Festival or bowl games or even regular concerts or regular season college and pro games are perfect places for food drives. Events also may prove to be great places to test people for diseases. Our client, the Mike Sly Foundation, whose goal is to get men to take blood tests for prostate cancer, plans to use football and basketball games as locations to actually conduct blood tests. Events within events are also great ways to raise money. The color of the Sly Foundation is blue. We want to turn September blue the way we've turned October pink. And so one of our ideas is to use blues music as a background for the Mike Sly Foundation. And that may include blues concerts at places like the SEC basketball tournament and other places. We also do tailgate parties for our client, Coach to Cure MD. And when we get back together, we're going to want to have big, gigantic, wonderful tailgate parties. Every event is in position to ask their fan base to help others in so many different ways. So to all of those who run events out there, let's find ways to give back when we get back. My guest angler is Randy Karsten from the V Foundation. Let's welcome Randy to the bridge. Randy, greetings and thanks for being with us today.
Thank you so much for having me, Rick. I really appreciate it.
Well, we're excited to talk to you today about the great work that you and others are doing and have been doing at the V Foundation for Cancer Research. But let's start first before you got there. Give our listeners kind of your background. What was your professional journey?
It's very interesting how I came to the V Foundation. I would say in general, most of my career has been around marketing and business development. Started at Procter & Gamble in the brand management program and worked for a number of different consumer products companies over the years, and leading into most recently before the V Foundation was in business development and other roles in the pharmaceutical industry. And I'll say this, I came to the V Foundation the same way that many of our teammates and colleagues have come in, which is just through a real connection to the mission. I don't tout this a lot and share it a lot, but one of the core things for me is I happen to be a cancer survivor, and I'm very fortunate to be able to say that. But on the other side, unfortunately, I have lost both my mother and both of my in-laws to cancer. And, living in Raleigh, North Carolina, over the last 30 years, seeing the amazing work of the V Foundation, kind of being close, and then, over the past sort of the end of my time at the pharmaceutical industry, or that role, I saw a job open at the V Foundation, and it just, two and two came together.
It spoke
and
to you, didn't it? Yeah.
Really jumped at the opportunity to kind of, use my experience and try to bring some of that experience and what I've learned over my career to the foundation.
Well, it's a rare person in America or even in the world today that cancer has not touched their lives in some capacity. And I do like the fact that it is personal. I've seen, let's face it, the founder, Jim Valvano, it was very personal, and the ability to say, I've drawn a really bad hand, but I've got the ability while I'm still here to do something significant, monumental, and maybe even lasting. And so that's kind of an interesting thing. You mentioned the pharmaceutical industry. We obviously record these podcasts a few weeks in advance, and this morning we got some news about a second potential COVID-19 vaccine, and I saw a recent 60 Minutes story on this Operation Warp Speed about how we're prepared to distribute the vaccine in a significant way. Having worked in that industry, talk a little bit about that, about the process for our listeners, how that's going to work, and what's the process of how they've developed the vaccine.
Yeah, it's to create these vaccines in on this timeline is just absolutely unbelievable to see what the industry's doing. And, I think they're bringing all the resources to bear. I think the major companies have really brought those resources in to create these new vaccines on just incredibly accelerated timing. Those folks who are stepping up to get engaged in those trials to make sure that those products are safe are heroes as much as anybody. But yeah, it's an incredibly intensive effort to accelerate the development of these vaccines, and most importantly, to do it in a way that, when they're brought to the general public, they're safe. And it's incredibly exciting to see that, two of these candidates are at this stage, look incredibly promising. And now it's just going to be the logistics of, how do you get them in the hands of literally hundreds of millions of people. It's amazing.
Well, I'm old enough to remember, first of all, the polio vaccine. I'm a child of the 1950s, and we all got polio vaccines. But it took 40 years to develop a polio vaccine. And I remember the smallpox vaccine that we all took. I think I still have a little scar on my arm someplace from that. This is unprecedented, this kind of speed to the marketplace.
It is. And I think it's, I think we also all have to kind of brace ourselves a little bit for the challenge at hand. It's my understanding that both candidates require 2 doses. So not only do we have to get, these doses out, to incredibly large numbers of people, but you're going to have to come in for a second dose. They also have to be kept at extremely low temperatures, which from a supply chain perspective, is a real challenge to get that product out. So, it's incredible news that we found a couple of candidates that I think are promising, but it's still going to take some time, I think, to get get the vaccines distributed and implemented across the population so that we can get past this thing.
Well, I like to remind people that there is kind of a reason why pharmaceuticals, drugs are expensive, because in
Absolutely.
some cases, companies have spent hundreds of millions of dollars, if not even $1 billion, on things that don't work. and
Exactly.
and we often we're looking for these miracle pills, these miracle things that will, but it doesn't happen by osmosis. I think about the segue now to what you're doing in trying to find cures for cancer. Same thing. I mean,
Absolutely.
we're developing drugs that we're very hopeful that will work without side effects, and that's a very complex process.
Absolutely, Rick. And I think it's we're fortunate to live in a country where I think the process is guided, through the FDA and with a focus on safety. And when you see a drug come to market, you can be assured that drug has been tested, and that you're going to know that drug, and drugs will have side effects, but I think that you're going to know it's safe and effective to do what it's supposed to do. And you're right. I think your point about the expenses for every drug that comes to market, there are many, many, many drugs that each of these pharmaceutical companies, brings along a long way through the process and then has to abandon. And those are huge investments. And so, yeah, I think that's, not to get too much into the I hate to say the word politics of pharmaceutical drug pricing, but there's a reason why these things are expensive. And I think the general public, it's always helpful for the general public to understand that.
Well, one of the concerns I have is, will people actually take a vaccine? When you're in the business you're in now, if you're suffering from cancer, and in many cases you're to what I would call a desperate level, that you're willing to say, sign me up. I mean, an experimental drug, absolutely. This is a little different, and the psychological process of getting people to actually say, I'm going to go take the vaccine, I think is going to be a critical element that a lot of us really haven't focused on quite yet. But I think it's going to be interesting to see. It's got political implications. It's got social implications. There seems to be a certain segment, believe it or not, I think that still is in denial that this thing actually exists.
Yeah.
And that's kind of scary too. But let's switch gears now and really talk about what you do at the V Foundation. I knew Jim Valvano. I was the marketing director for the National Association of Basketball Coaches for a number of years, and had been a college basketball coach early in my career. And what Jim did was just so heartwarming. And the great speech from the ESPY Awards still resonates today, the never give up speech. But really, what I think beyond Jim's commitment was the commitment of ESPN. And their partnership has been amazing. Talk a little bit about that first, about what ESPN's partnership continues to mean to the V Foundation.
Oh, it's just at the core of the V Foundation, and has been, as you know, from day one. The commitment from ESPN has never wavered. We are, essentially locked arm in arm as we kind of move forward here. And I can tell you that it's just such an amazing pleasure to go, spend time with anyone in that organization. We're fortunate enough to work very closely, and part of my responsibility of my team is to kind of work on the day-to-day relationship and execution of the programs that we work on together. And when you go to Bristol or any of their offices and walk up and down the halls, everyone has a story they want to share with you. It's just part of ESPN's DNA, our relationship, and just the resources they put into it, the effort, the passion. It's really fantastic. And our two major tent poles with ESPN are the ESPYs, and then the Jimmy V Classic, and everything that goes around that. And what they do is they put committees together with chairs for each of those committees for those two tent poles, and the amount of work and effort that goes into executing against these two tent poles, and the energy the folks in these committees put into it, and this is not their day job. I mean, every one of them, every hour they spend doing this is, kind of incremental to them getting their tasks done for whatever role they're in at ESPN. And so we're just so fortunate, to have the power of ESPN behind this, but also the passion and the energy that they put into this relationship.
Well, as I mentioned, we recorded this early, and then this will run during V Week. It's such a bittersweet time for me. Traditionally, the week of the Jimmy V Classic is the week everybody that's in college athletics gathers together in New York. We have the Monday night National Football Foundation black tie dinner, and then we have the Jimmy V Classic on Tuesday, and we have the Sports Business Journal would traditionally do their 2-day seminar on intercollegiate athletics leading up to the following Saturday and the announcement of the Heisman Trophy. Well, we're upside down this year. They're going to announce the Heisman Trophy in January. The NFF dinner is virtual, and now we've moved the V Classic out of Madison Square Garden to Bankers Life Arena in Indianapolis. But we still have, I think, two tremendous games, Baylor, Illinois, and Tennessee, Gonzaga, on ESPN. I think are going to be great games. But y'all do things throughout the entire week. I know ESPN runs a lot of PSAs. They encourage people to donate all during the week. They seem to get all of their programming elements kind of aligned in that process. And it's really something pretty special to watch. I think I read where when George Bodenheimer retired, he still stayed on the board, I think, with you guys.
Absolutely.
And continues to, I want to say, kind of be the conscience of ESPN's commitment to the V Foundation. I also had the privilege of working with the WBCA, the Women's Basketball Coaches Association, who was instrumental in creating the KYAL Fund as part of the V Foundation. And, who would have believed that two coaches at NC State would both get cancer, both pass away from cancer, but both leave this lasting impact? It's just you can't write that script.
No, and they were so close, and as are our foundations. There's an amazing connection there.
The other thing that I really like is how Dick Vitale has embraced it. Talk a little bit about what Dick does and his annual event in Florida. That I think his thing funds pediatric cancer research, but it's pretty special. It's a pretty special event.
Yeah, absolutely. Dick is. I've had the pleasure now, obviously being in this role of being able to kind of watch Dick as he leads this effort. He really is the face of our pediatric cancer research fundraising effort, and drives that primarily through the gala. But I will tell you this: there's rarely a day that goes by at the V Foundation where Dick's name does not come up because he's doing something every day. It's a year-round absolute passion for him, and I'm not sure if the listeners are aware, but this year, when we first found out about COVID-19 in mid-March and realized that it was going to start to impact events, our sort of calendar of events. We have a fundraiser up in Virginia in April. And then it's followed closely by Dick's event in Sarasota in early May, and then we have our own we have a peer-to-peer bike fundraising ride in Raleigh in May as well. It didn't take us long to realize we were going to have to make some changes, obviously. And one of the things that we did is moved Dick's event to Labor Day weekend. And when we first did that, we moved it with hope. We knew what was going to happen back in March and early April, but we moved it in the hope that we could hold on to a live event. And Dick was incredibly passionate about trying to do that. As it came closer, as many organizations have, we had to shift and make a change, and we went virtual. And Dick just absolutely rallied his sponsors and supporters. And I think when we went into this year, he had a goal that was in the $3.5 to $4 million range. And actually this year raised over $7 million during that virtual event. And so, it's just, you can't say enough about him. Going back to the classic, the Jimmy V Classic, one of the most impactful fundraising times that we have on air is when Dick makes his appeal the night of the Classic. We're fortunate and sophisticated enough to be able to track activity, through programming and see what happens. And I can tell you that when Dick is on air that night, it's one of the most I hate to use the word productive, but we generate the most donations per block of time when he does that of almost any time during the year. He's absolutely amazing.
Well, I'm an old Southern boy, and I tell people that my favorite meal every day is breakfast, and I don't like continental breakfast. I like eggs and bacon and grits and all this. And I'll laughingly tell people, do you know the difference between the bacon and the eggs? And the answer is the chicken was involved, but the pig was committed. And and Dick is the pig. He's committed. I mean, he's committed
Absolutely.
in every way possible. And like you said, when he makes that announcement, it is so heartfelt. I mean, he's saying we can save lives, people. I mean, right now, and y'all have proven that. One of the things that I love about the V Foundation is that your research grants don't often go to those that are what I call tenured researchers. They go to the mavericks, people that a small research grant, they're doing things, breakthrough kinds of things that I think is kind of changing the game. Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, in a couple things. One, we're guided by a scientific advisory committee that is just absolutely amazing. And I think that group that heads up and leads NCI designated cancer institutions and oncology groups at cancer institutions around the country kind of guides our strategy and helps oversee that process. And we grant a number of areas, but you're right. One of the things that Jim Valvano really wanted to do is, and a bit of a sports analogy, is he wanted to help build the bench. And so I think the first thing that the foundation raised money for were V scholars, which, as you mentioned, kind of up and coming researchers, that don't typically find it difficult to get grant money, but also are doing really innovative work. And so that's an area that we have focused on. We've funded since the beginning, and that it truly is becoming this kind of network of talent that is spread out now throughout the cancer industry. We've got we grant somewhere in the neighborhood of 25 V Scholar grants a year. So think about that over, now we're in our 26th year. The number of researchers that we're funding, and then they go on to do these amazing things. So, yeah, it's the work that we do. I'd say the other thing is that we are we grant across all cancer types, and so what we're really looking for is the best research to fund, and we're able to do that. We do it in a very competitive way. We do RFPs across NCI designated cancer centers. They compete within themselves. Each one of them competes to submit one grant application, and then those grant applications compete for our funding. So, when you see a project that's funded by the V Foundation, and you'll hear this a lot, that it's, an incredibly well vetted and innovative study that's being funded, and we're having huge impact, and that's the most important thing. I think over time we're contributing to incredible advancements in survival rates and just positive advancements in the cancer space.
Well, you also run two phenomenal wine celebrations. I'll tell you a quick story. Years ago, you and I don't know if you still do this, but years ago you used to do an event in New York, usually in October, where you brought in the four coaches that were going to coach in the V Classic. And I remember one year, I think it was at the New York Athletic Club, and it's funny. My son, I bid on an item. You had a silent and a live auction item during that particular event, and one of them was a wonderful poster of which sports center do you watch. And my son Ryan is a Duke freak. I mean, he loves Duke basketball. He loves Coach K, and I was able to get him the one of Mike sitting in his office watching Sports Center, and so that hangs in Ryan's office, and he just loves that. But there was a woman working for y'all at the time named Joyce Aschenbrenner, and you had a live auction item to bid on a trip to the wine celebration in Napa.
Yeah.
And she came by and said, "Rick, I can't give this away. I need you to bid this much money, because I got to get at least this much money because I can't give it away." And I said, "Sure." And she said, "And then I'll give you your money back." Well, I bid on it, and she came by and said, "Thank you so much." I said, "No, Joyce, I'm going to go. I'm gonna write you a check." She went, "What? No, I didn't mean for you to do that." I said, "No, we're going." And my wife Charlotte and I went, and an unbelievable event. I mean, maybe the best event I've ever been to in my life. And I've been to a lot of great events with, private luncheons and wine cellars with celebrity chefs and matching. And that year we went to Francis Ford Coppola's estate for the finale, and Michael McDonald was the entertainer. And I'll tell you one more funny story. Mike Krzyzewski and Mickey hosted it, and Mike got up and said, "All right, this is not in your bid book, but I've got 4 tickets behind my bench for the Carolina game, and if we win, when we win, you come back to my house afterwards and have drinks." And I said to my wife, "I'm going to get this." Well, before I could get my hand up, it got out of my league. It got to be. She was like, "All right, Mr. Big Time, you were going to bid on this." I was like, my first house cost less than this. And we had a good laugh about it. But talk about the wine celebration, because the one in Virginia and the one in Napa raise a lot of money.
Yeah, they absolutely do. Yeah, our Napa wine celebration it started in 1999. It has raised I think it's $118 million since then. You mentioned Mike Krzyzewski. We've been so fortunate, to have him host that for many of the years. I think every once in a while he has that conflict with something called the Olympics during the summer that keeps him from coming out. But other than that, he's just been absolutely amazing. And it's the really beautiful thing about the wine celebration is just the entire Napa community has embraced it and embraced the organization. The vintners are so committed. They give back so much to what we're doing, and it just, as you said, if you go to the wine celebration, it's just going to be an absolutely wonderful experience. But the other thing that's a part of it is we do a scientific symposium during the weekend. That's a part of the entire experience. And we bring in, our leaders from our scientific advisory committee, and every year there's a particular cancer focus, and that alone is a part of the experience. I think you would, if you talk to people who've attended. I mean, obviously the luncheons and the dinners and the events and the gala are something, but to a person, they will tell you that they'll walk away, knowing more and inspired about what they're, helping to fund there, because of that scientific symposium. So it's it's an absolutely fantastic, group of people that runs that, that event, and we're very fortunate to have that community get behind it.
And then you run one in Virginia now, I think, that Jay Billis is involved in.
We do. We just started. I say just started. I think we're in our sixth year now, and that is up in Middleburg, Virginia. And yeah, Jay is at least this year, I think, leading in was committed to hosting, and that'll be coming up next April. We're working toward the assumption that that'll happen, and and we'll go forward. And Jay is just another great example of that, the ESPN commitment. I don't think we've talked about it. Both Jay Billis and Sage Steele just recently joined our national board, and are both all in already. Sage actually has been involved in a number of things. She hosted a wine tasting that was in support of the wine celebration this past August. And Jay's, incredibly supportive and, as I said, committed to the Virginia event. That one is growing. Very excited about it. And yeah, that one's moving forward as well.
Well, we've seen how cancer has affected other ESPN personalities. I know my friend Holly Rowe is a cancer survivor, and we unfortunately lost Stuart Scott, and watched his battle almost in real time. And I know y'all are doing some new initiatives around Stuart and his memory. Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, I'm really, excited to kind of share that we're just continuing to work to honor Stuart Scott. In 2015, when he passed away, he was involved in a clinical trial. And long before he was diagnosed with cancer, he was a huge supporter of the V Foundation. And so, we created the Stuart Scott Memorial Cancer Research Fund in his honor. And the focus of that is really to do what we can to address disparities in cancer among the African American and minority communities. Unfortunately, the incidences of cancer across many cancer types, the mortality rates across many cancer types in the African American community are really high compared to the averages. And so that's one side that we're doing research to try to understand that better across a number of different cancer types. There are also challenges with minority researchers advancing their careers, and so we're funding minority V scholars as well as these research projects. And I have to say that the fund is just really has a lot of momentum behind it. We have provided over 30 grants to date, over $10 million in cancer research funding in that space across 23 different cancer institutions, cancer centers. And so, yeah, we're continuing to kind of honor his legacy. And this week, on the 4th, ESPN is going to spend a lot of time focusing on the Stuart Scott Memorial Cancer Research Fund. And in fact, we will be launching a really exciting initiative with the Alpha Phi Alpha fraternity, which, if listeners aren't aware of this, Stuart Scott was an Alpha at the University of North Carolina. And, through various conversations, we've came in contact through, with the Alpha Phi Alpha organization. And we're forming a partnership with them to, it's going to be called Give and Go to Fight Cancer. And the give is to donate to the Stuart Scott Memorial Cancer Research Fund. And the go is to go get screening and checkups. And it's a program that the Alpha Phi Alpha organization will be fundraising throughout the month of December this year. And we'll announce that on Friday. And then throughout the year, we'll work with them on programs to create awareness for the need for cancer checkups. So we're honored to partner with that organization. They are incredibly excited to be able to honor Stuart's legacy as well. This is the initial launch of that program, and we see this as a very positive long-term partnership that we'll be kicking off this year.
I love the message about go get tested. I know, we've done some work with Anna Slive Harwood and the Mike Slive Foundation around prostate cancer, and African American men, they just don't get tested. I mean, they don't get blood tests. They don't get the exam, and that is such a prevented disease if you catch it early. And yet it's a disease that metastasizes if you don't catch it early, and getting people to go, and guys, women do go to the doctor a whole lot more than men do. We've made amazing strides in breast cancer examinations, maybe not as much in cures and treatments, but guys just need to go get tested. Even skin cancer. Right. I mean, I look at guys sometimes and go, have you noticed that thing on your face? What thing? Yeah. And the next thing, you got a big problem.
Yeah. And that's really at the core, I think, of this new partnership and what we're doing with the Alpha Phi Alpha organization. The thing I didn't mention earlier that's interesting about the organization, they were the first Black fraternity. They were founded on December 4th, which is actually, the anniversary is Friday. So it's amazing how this thing has sort of come together. But, they will bring their network, their brothers, 80,000 plus active brothers will kind of work together to help us support this. So we're absolutely, we're just, to your point about getting screened and getting checked, we think it's going to be a powerful way to get that message out. And by the way, I did listen to your podcast with Anna, and they're doing amazing work there at the Slive Foundation.
I'm really proud of her. They recently did a virtual event. They had to change their Beyond Blue from a live event to a virtual event, and I think ended up raising about $500,000, which was really great in this time period. From that standpoint, you mentioned not the irony, but maybe the coincidence or whatever of you launching this initiative on December the 4th on their Founders Day. I have a business partner, Ron Cook, and he has a great line. He says, "Coincidence is when God chooses to be anonymous." I love
Amen.
that, because you see so many things that you go, I couldn't have written this script. I mean, how does this happen that we find this first African-American fraternity at North Carolina that Stuart Scott was a member of, that was founded on December the 4th? I mean, it all just kind of laid out. I want to kind of close with, a lot of our listeners are in the marketing, communication, sponsorship business. You have a great partnership with Corona, with our friends at Constellation around the V Classic. Talk about how corporations can get more involved with the V Foundation.
Wow, thanks for the opportunity to bring this up. And the great thing about the V Foundation is there's just many ways to do that. I think we are One is through our partnership with ESPN, and there are many opportunities to partner through either the ESPYs. I think our listeners are aware that around the ESPYs we have two events that are sponsorship related that benefit the V Foundation. One is the Sports Humanitarian Awards dinner, which is a way of honoring things that corporations, leagues, and teams are doing in the community. And that's an event with sponsorship opportunities and proceeds benefit the V Foundation, as well as our celebrity golf event, which takes place in conjunction with the ESPYs. So that's one. And then around the V Week, there's sponsorship opportunities throughout. The Classic, obviously, and Corona's been the presenter of that event for years, but other sponsorship opportunities there. And, beyond that, we just have a full slate of events throughout the year. You mentioned the wine celebration. There are ways to support that. Virginia Vine, our event up in Virginia, Dick Vitale's event as well. We launched a peer-to-peer bike fundraising ride here in Raleigh a couple of years ago, and there's many ways to get engaged and sponsor that as well. Lots of different properties that are sponsorable. And in addition, we're in the process, or we're always looking for cause marketing partners, and Corona is a great example. They fundraise through their marketing efforts and their distributor network on a national basis. We have amazing partnerships with Bristol-Myers Squibb as an example. That's kind of a combination of grant funding. And also a couple of years ago, they brought over to us their employee-based fundraising effort. It's called the Coast to Coast for Cancer Ride. And their employees ride in teams across the country with stops in major markets.
That's
and
very cool.
They do peer-to-peer fundraising, and Bristol-Myers Squibb matches that. So just lots of opportunities. We're always looking for cause marketing partners. And we are in the process also of creating some new assets and a new platform that we'll be launching next year that will provide even broader opportunities for corporate partners to, partner with us and gain exposure for the good work that they're doing.
Well, we look forward to hearing the details about that. I want to remind our listeners that the reason I give to the V Foundation every year is because 100% of the money that I and everybody else gives goes directly to research grants. The foundation has been funded enough to operate on an ongoing basis, and there are very few charities that say 100% of your gift goes to potentially save somebody's life, and I think that's amazingly commemorable for you guys.
Yeah, well, thank you for that. We're very proud of that, and because of the generosity of donors who established an endowment. We all of our operating expenses, administrative expenses are covered through the endowment. So yeah, I mean, it's a very rare opportunity when you want to support a charity that 100% goes to, fund what you're making the donation for. So.
Well, it's V Week, and we're thrilled that you would be with us today from the bridge.
Thank you. My pleasure. Thank you very much.
Here's my thoughts today from the soapbox. I am unabashedly a capitalist. But as I wrote in my book, The Business Tithe, capitalism without compassion, capitalism that doesn't help others, I think is a sin. Businesses should feed sheep. First, the families of those who work at the business, then bring value and help to customers, and then help the community at large in which you serve. But I know this, only profitable businesses can actually feed sheep. Only profits can add value to others. I've told you before that if you want a free copy of the book, The Business Tithe, simply send me an email at rick@fishbaitmarketing.com, and I'll email you an electronic copy of the book. It has 7 steps to make your business able to give back more. And that's our view from the soapbox. Let's close today with another place to eat on the road with Rick. My son Ryan turned 32 last week. Where'd the time go? I remember his 10th birthday. We went to see his sister Jennifer, who was a freshman that year at NYU. And so we all went up for Thanksgiving weekend to celebrate with her and to go to the parade and to have a good time. Well, we celebrated Ryan's 10th birthday at what is now still one of our favorite Italian restaurants in New York, the Trattoria dell'Arte on 7th Avenue in Midtown. Unfortunately, they, like so many restaurants in New York and a lot of other restaurants in cities around the country for that matter, are still closed, but they hope to open again soon. Now, I remember this particular birthday because when they brought the cake out to Ryan, they all gathered around the table, and this is what they sang. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, total stranger. Happy birthday to you. It's the way we sing all of our birthday greetings these days to the total strangers. Trattoria dell'Arte has the best antipasta I have ever seen. They have dozens of plates of both hot and cold dishes. I love the fried Jerusalem artichokes and polenta and many other great starters. I hope this place opens again soon. And I hope all of us can support all the great restaurants out there this holiday season on the road with Rick or on whatever road you find yourself. Thanks for joining us today, and to Randy Karsten for sharing some thoughts on charities and the V Foundation for Cancer Research. Stay safe, and we'll see you back here next week from the bridge.